Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. This is Nephilim VA bringing you the 16th chapter of Inheritance, written by A is for Amy 71 on AO3. This is officially the beginning of Izuku's training arc. Hopefully everything goes to plan. We can hope. But before we begin, here are the trigger warnings. This fanfiction is for mature audiences with canon-typical violence and a trigger warning for major character death. If that isn't your style, then I recommend Shades of Green, which is written by Maybe It's Friendly on AO3. It can be found on my channel! Canon Divergence is the name of the game and indulges the what-ifs of Midoriya Izuku having a quirk. With that being said, the chapter summary is as followed. Time flies, and the recommendation exam arrives. Now I implore you to sit back and relax whilst I read to you. Chapter 16. Before he knew it, Izuku was in his 3rd year of middle school. The beach project was nearly complete and was mostly maintenance from what the currents washed up, or what unscrupulous people dumped there. Izuku spent a lot of his time simply running on the beach or swimming along the shoreline. A couple of times he spied Ka-chan watching him from across the street, where a corner store had reopened once people started visiting the beach again. It might have been a coincidence, but when Izuku had waved the second time, he could have sworn that he'd startled the other boy, and Ka-chan had spun on his heel and disappeared around the corner. Finally, at the beginning of his 3rd year of middle school, Izuku was sent home with forms to be filled out, stating which high schools he would be aspiring to. He wondered if he should list UA, or if that was giving too much personal information out to an institution that Shigaraki Tomura and Kurogiri and Dr. Tsubasa might be able to access. His father had a talk with Sir Night-Eye about it over the phone, and they decided that they would list UA Heroics course as his first choice, and Shiketsu as his second choice, though they had no intention of his applying there. A call to the school administration would help to keep the staff quiet about it for the most part, and it wasn't anything a decent hacker wouldn't be able to access. At any rate. It was also news to Izuku that he periodically had people from my agency following him from a distance, in case he ever ran into trouble. When he mentioned as much, Sir simply told him that it only happened at times he wasn't expected to be somewhere in particular, when they would know very quickly if he wasn't where he should be. That was hardly ever with his regimented schedule. A week later, when the teacher was going through the stacks of papers in front of the class, he mentioned that most of them would be moving up to the attached high school. With the exception of Moriyama, who will be applying to Kamino High, she told them, glancing at her lists, and Bakugo, who is aiming for the heroics track of UA High. Hey Midoriya, weren't you gonna take the entrance exam for UA too? One of the kids asked from a row away. Used to be all about trying to be a hero. No, I don't plan to take the UA entrance exam, he said, technically not lying. Course not, Ka-chan sneered. He can't even keep from levitating out of his damn seat. Hey man, one of the others laughed. That hasn't happened for a long time. Izuku just smiled and shook his head ruefully. It wouldn't do any good to say anything about expecting a recommendation spot at UA. UA only takes the best, and that's me. Ka-chan bragged loudly. Deku wouldn't stand a chance. He'd be killed in the exam. All those quirks and he's still an idiot. Izuku sighed and tried to ignore him, only spurring Ka-chan on to continue his bragging about how much he'd been working out with his quirk and how good he was. It didn't matter. Izuku knew the truth, and one day soon Ka-chan would too. In the hallway after classes, Karchan shouldered Izuku out of his way, and when Izuku made an annoyed noise, he stopped and spun to face him.
Look, nerd. It seems like you finally realized you're not UA material, but don't go thinking you can keep looking down on me because you've got a bunch of lame-ass quirks. Even if you did get into some other hero school, the best you'll ever manage is a sidekick to some busted D-lister.
When have I ever looked down on you? Izuku demanded crossly, losing his temper. What I don't get is why you are even trying for UA. If you want to be a hero, you actually have to care about people, right? I don't think that's something they teach there. I haven't seen you care about anyone but yourself since we were kids. Good luck with that. He shoved past Karchan and ignored the angry shout for him to stop and the crackling sparks that Karchan threw at his back as Izuku stormed out of the school. Sure, Karchan had an amazing quirk. Izuku had always known that, and even been envious of it in the past. He idolized the other boy and always complimented and encouraged him until they'd been separated by Karchan's temper and superiority complex. Izuku had no idea how Karchan had ever gotten the idea that he was being looked down on in any way by Izuku. If it wasn't so infuriating, it would be funny. When the day came that Izuku was to meet the board of directors of UA, he was nervous and fidgety. Gran had pulled him aside the evening before and told him that he better not slack off. You remember everything you worked for? He told Izuku gruffly. You give it everything you've got, no matter what they ask you to do. No one in their right mind would pass up a student that All Might had personally handpicked and mentored. But that just means you have to shine brighter than anyone else. Izuku had swallowed hard and nodded, and Gran had grinned. No pressure, though, the old man added with a laugh, slapping Izuku on the back affectionately. He was ushered to a room with 5 other prospective students, all in different middle school uniforms. There was a taller girl with a large, spiky ponytail who looked nervous, yet poised. She wore a small, forced smile on her lips as she waited for everyone else. There was a really tall boy who Izuku found hard to believe he was a middle schooler, who stood with a huge grin on his face, his hair clipped close to his head, and he had sharp eyes. He was fidgety and seemed to be struggling to not talk to anyone and everyone in the room. Another boy with bi-coloured hair, red on one half and white on the other, and eyes, grey and blue, and a large scar over his left eye, stood with a stoic expression, but Izuku could see his jaw was clenched, betraying his nerves. A girl with shoulder-length black hair and a pleasant smile stood near the girl with the ponytail, and Izuku noticed she was balanced on the balls of her feet, as if wanting to bounce in her excitement. Finally, there was the most interesting-looking boy. He appeared to have no lips, and all of his teeth were on display, though it didn't seem like he was smiling. It was hard to tell. Izuku couldn't wait to find out what all of their quirks were. He didn't have long to wait. A small man, mouse, dog, bear? With a scar crossing one eye and wearing a suit, stepped forward. Welcome to UA, recommended students. I am Principal Nezu, and these ladies and gentlemen behind me are on the committee that will decide who will ultimately get the 4 available recommended seats in the Heroics program. They all bowed to the collective adults in respect when Nezu introduced them. The boy with the short cropped hair had a strange bow that almost had his head smacking into the ground in his zeal. Each of you has excellent sponsors who have assured us that your skills are a head and shoulders above other applicants. As such, they believe you are deserving of advanced placement in our program, and that you can maintain grades in the top 5% of your year in Heroics. Izuku nodded and noted that a couple of the others did too. The tallest boy with the short cropped hair bit his lip, but didn't demur at this statement. Izuku wondered if he had trouble in academics or an unstable quirk or something. We will begin with the written exam, which you will have 2 hours to complete if needed. Nezu told them cheerfully, after which there will be introductions and the physical portion of the exam can begin. They were led into a large room with 6 desks spaced widely apart. There were pencils and calculators provided, but otherwise were bare. They each took a seat at random and waited while a thick stack of papers was placed in front of each of them, face down. Izuku was very careful not to touch any of the papers, even with his glove on, just in case, with all of his fingers when they were told to begin. Izuku was grateful to Sir Night-Eye for all of the tutoring he had received in the weeks leading up to the exam, and mock exams he'd taken. He finished the tests in just over an hour and checked all of his answers before he turned over his paper as a signal that he was finished. He noted that the girl with the ponytail had finished before him, as had the boy with the exposed teeth. The boy with 2 different coloured hair finished not so long after Izuku did, followed by the other girl. The tall boy who had bowed weirdly earlier chewed on his thumbnail and seemed to be sweating a lot by the time he turned his test over, just minutes before the time was up. Once the papers were collected, the principal returned and congratulated them all on completing the first half of the exam. From there, he led them to the locker room, where they changed into gym clothes. The 4 boys were largely quiet as they changed, not having been introduced yet. The boy with bi-coloured hair looked surly and unfriendly, and he was apparently not the only one to notice. The tall boy kept giving him sidelong glances too. The boy with exposed teeth took a fortifying breath and nodded to himself as he shut his locker and turned to face the others. "Let's all do our best," he said. Izuku grinned and nodded. "Yeah," the tall boy added enthusiastically. The remaining boys simply turned and left the locker room, leaving them to follow. They all eyed each other as if one of the others might know what his problem was, but they all just shrugged. People handled stress in different ways. They were met outside the door by the 2 girls, the principal and the other committee members, and were led to a small arena with a track around it, and plenty of room for track and field type activities. "Now for the introductions," Principal Nezu said once all 6 students were gathered around. There was a sheath of papers in his hand, and he called out a name. "Tokage Setsuna." "Yes, sir!" The girl with shoulder-length black hair said promptly, giving a quick bow. "Your quirk is listed as Lizard Tail Splitter. Could you please tell us more about it?" Izuku noted that the committee members all had clipboards that they would occasionally look at and write on, but their faces were inscrutable. "Yes. I can split my body up into dozens of different pieces and control them all separately. If a piece is damaged or destroyed, it will regenerate, like a lizard's tail, only much faster." "And why do you aspire to be a hero?" the principal asked serenely. "I believe my quirk would be a great asset to rescue teams and covert operations, so it seemed only natural that getting my hero license would be the first step in making it happen." "Very nicely said," Nezu said with a pleasant tone. "Next we have Yoashi Inasa." "Yes, sir!" It was the tall boy with the close-cropped hair. Everything about him seemed huge, including his voice and personality. He bowed deeply again, this time scraping his head on the ground as he did so. Izuku fought the urge to giggle. "Your quirk is called Whirlwind." "Yes!" His voice was loud and confident sounding. "I can control and manipulate the air around me over a very wide area. I can use my whirlwinds to move heavy objects, clear rubble, and transport people without harming them. I can even move myself with limited success. I want to be a hero because I have the passion for helping people and think that all good heroes need to be passionate about what they do." "Impressive," Nezu said with the same tone as before. Inasa looked as pleased as if Nezu had told him he'd won the lottery. "Next is Todoroki Shoto," Nezu called out. "Here," said the boy with the red and white hair. Izuku couldn't help but wonder if the boy had low blood pressure or something. He seemed overly calm. and his face held almost no expression as he raised a hand in acknowledgement of his name.
Your quirk is half cold, half hot.
Yes. I produce ice from my right side and fire from my left side. I only use my left side to defrost or melt the ice I produce. I won't use it in battle or heroics. Izuku blinked. The boy had 2 quirks, but only wanted to use one of them. Why? Maybe the side with fire was too weak to be of other use. That's not what he implied. How'd he get 2? It was fascinating, and he really wanted to question the other boy and learn more and take some notes.
I see,
Nezu said while the committee members scribbled on their clipboards.
And why do you want to be a hero?
The boy was silent for so long that Izuku wondered if he was going to answer.
I need to surpass my father and become the #1 hero in Japan.
Izuku wasn't sure what that meant, but he knew that wasn't really an answer, but a goal. He also knew he would be expected to answer the same question and was formulating the answer in his mind, so he didn't trip over his words.
I see, Nezu said again, non-committally. Our next applicant is Hononuki Juzo.
That's me, the boy with the exposed teeth volunteered, stepping forward and bowing.
Your quirk is called softening.
Yes, sir. My quirk allows me to soften anything I touch. Anything non-living, that is. I can't do it to people or animals. It's most useful when I use it on the ground and turn it into something like quicksand, making my opponents sink in.
Very interesting,
Nezu commented without a change of expression. How much expression could a mouse bear man have? Izuku wondered.
I want to become a hero to help clean up the streets and keep villains from getting away when a crime is committed, keeping others safe. I also believe my quirk would be excellent for saving lives in disaster zones, making it easier to extract those stuck in places that are hard to reach.
He stepped back and breathed a small sigh of relief that Izuku could empathize with. This was strangely nerve-wracking.
Thank you, Nezu said. Next is Midoriya Izuku?
Izuku stepped forward and bowed.
I see your quirk will take a bit of explanation, but it is called inheritance.
Yes, sir, Izuku said, willing his voice not to shake.
My quirk is one of those invisible ones that you don't really know about until something triggers it. In my case, someone else's death in close proximity to my location triggers my own quirk, and I absorb it, or inherit the quirk of that person when they die.
He heard a couple of gasps from the other applicants behind him, and tried not to cringe. He knew how gruesome it sounded without further explanation.
As a result, I have multiple other quirks, he continued. Though, at least a couple of them were also forced onto me by a villain when I was a young child. I've read your file about this, Nezu said. You don't have to explain that part at this time. Please tell us about the quirks you currently have.
Izuku did. He began with pull and listed them in order he had received them, listing enhanced strength in place of one for all.
Crap, dude, that's crazy,
Yoarashi said excitedly before clapping a hand over his mouth and looking contrite. Izuku grinned, feeling some of his nervousness ease.
I know, right?
He acknowledged. The enhanced strength one still gives me a little trouble and fades in and out. I'm working with a trainer on it, and hope that UA can help me learn to master it and use it heroically.
And why do you want to become a hero, Midoriya-kun?
To be honest, I've always been inspired by heroes for as long as I can remember. I've never wanted to be anything else. I idolized All Might growing up and admired how he could always keep a smile on his face and make people feel safe in the worst situations. All Might won't be around forever, and when he finally steps down as the symbol of peace, good heroes will need to be there to fill the huge void he will leave behind. I don't know if I could ever be a symbol of peace, but a symbol of hope wouldn't be so bad. Izuku bowed again and stepped backwards with a murmur of thanks. He could feel the others staring at him, even as there was scribbling from all of the committee members. He wasn't sure if that was good or bad. Last, but certainly not least, Yaoyorozu Momo. The girl with the spiky ponytail stepped forward and Izuku focused his attention on her, trying not to overthink what was being written down about him. Yes, sir. My quirk is called creation. My quirk gives me the ability to create any non-living material or object from my exposed skin by transforming the molecular structure of the lipids in my body. In order to create something, I have to understand the molecular structure of what the material or object is made out of. Izuku stared. The sheer amount of studying and memorization that must go into a quirk like that was staggering, and he instantly admired her for the hard work she must have put into it. He was already hypothesizing in his head about the amount of food she would need to consume to be able to create anything of real size, and whether she had a speciality. And what prompted you to try for the hero course? Nezu asked her kindly. I wanted the challenge, and have the desire to help people with my quirk. People look at what I can do and assume that I'm only good for granting wishes, not realizing how many laws and rules exist to keep me from using my quirk that way. I would like to break that stereotype, and use my quirk in a way that truly helps people and saves lives. Excellent, all of you, Nezu said when Yaoyorozu stepped back. The committee members nodded as they finished their notes. Next, we'll have a practical demonstration of your abilities and general physical fitness. Somehow, Izuku sensed that the hardest part, for him at least, was over. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support you've given me. I know I did a community post about this, but I am still so thankful and blown away by now having 700 subscribers. Thank you all for being here. All credits goes to the original creator of this fanfiction. A is for Amy71 on AO3. I would highly appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you subscribe to the channel and you hit the notification bell to be notified of when I next upload. There is no pressure to do so though. Thank you for visiting my cozy corner of the internet. Keep growing my sunflowers. Mwah!